Austin was born into a devout Muslim family in a small town where faith was the foundation of daily life. From an early age, he was taught that Islam was the only true path to salvation. Every Friday, his parents took him to the mosque, and at home, he diligently learned to pray 5 times a day, reciting verses from the Quran that he had committed to memory. For Austin, Islam wasn't just a religion, it was the essence of his identity and a guide to how he lived every aspect of his life. In his childhood, Austin found comfort and pride in being part of his religious community. He would sit with his family during evening gatherings, listening to stories of the prophets and learning about Allah's guidance for humanity. These teachings, reinforced by his parents and the local imam, instilled in him a firm belief that Islam was the absolute truth, leaving no room for doubt. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith. But as Austin grew older, small questions began to creep into his mind. Why? He wondered. Did Allah only speak Arabic when there were so many languages in the world? Why was it necessary to face Mecca during prayer or follow specific rituals so precisely? These thoughts made him uneasy, and he quickly dismissed them, afraid that questioning his faith might lead to punishment. More than that, he didn't want to disappoint his parents, who had always been his moral compass. Things began to shift when Austin entered college. For the first time, he was exposed to people from a variety of cultural and religious backgrounds. His classmates included Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and even atheists. Through conversations with them, he realized that everyone had their reasons for believing or not believing in their respective faiths. This exposure made him curious, though it also unsettled the certainty he had grown up with. One day, Austin met Sophia, a senior majoring in history and a devout Orthodox Christian. Sophia was different from what he had always imagined Christians to be. She didn't try to impose her beliefs on others. Instead, she was open to listening and calmly sharing her perspectives. During one of their many conversations, Sophia spoke about Jesus, not merely as a prophet, but as the Son of God, someone divine and central to her faith. At first, Austin was defensive and skeptical. The idea of God having a son seemed illogical to him. How could God, who is eternal and all-powerful, become a man? Why would he need to suffer and die to forgive sins when he could simply decree forgiveness? These concepts clashed with everything Austin had been taught. He argued with Sophia, trying to convince her that Islam was the true religion. Yet, no matter how heated their discussions became, Sophia remained patient, kind, and respectful. She never tried to force him to agree with her, but simply presented her beliefs. Their conversations left Austin conflicted. On one hand, he felt secure in the teachings of Islam, which had shaped his worldview since childhood. On the other hand, Sophia's words about Jesus' love and sacrifice resonated with something deep inside him, something he couldn't quite articulate. For the first time, Austin began to question whether his understanding of Christianity was accurate. Sophia encouraged him to read the Bible for himself, and after some hesitation, he decided to give it a try. In secret, Austin began studying both the Quran and the Bible. He didn't tell anyone about his growing curiosity, not even Sophia. He feared his family's reaction if they found out he was exploring another religion. Some passages in the Bible struck a chord with him, especially those about love, forgiveness, and grace. Others seemed strange or difficult to reconcile with his Islamic upbringing. Nonetheless, he felt compelled to continue reading. Even as it deepened his internal conflict, Austin's faith was shaken. But he wasn't ready to admit it, not even to himself. He still prayed to Allah, hoping for clarity. Yet his questions only grew louder. Why did God require so many rituals and strict rules? Was it possible that God could be more than what he had always believed? He struggled with these doubts in silence, torn between loyalty to his upbringing and a desire to uncover the truth for himself. One night, Austin had a dream that left him shaken. In the dream, he stood before two doors. One bore the crescent moon of Islam, and the other, a cross. A voice spoke to him, saying, "Choose wisely, for your eternal destiny depends on it." When he awoke, his heart was pounding, and his thoughts were racing. He couldn't shake the dream, and it forced him to confront his doubts in a way he never had before. Austin began praying with newfound urgency, not to Allah specifically, but to whatever higher power truly existed. He pleaded for guidance, for a way to find the truth. He didn't care about the consequences or what his family and friends might think. He just wanted to know what was real. As Austin continued his search for answers, he spent more time with Sophia and her Christian friends. They invited him to attend church, but he was too afraid to go. What if someone saw him? What if he was making a mistake? Despite his fear, he couldn't stop asking questions. The more he learned about Christianity, the more he realized how little he truly understood about either religion. He wished there were a way to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, which path was right. Austin had no idea that this internal struggle would soon lead him on a journey that would change his life forever. Austin's internal struggle deepened as he continued his search for truth. He spent countless nights reading the Quran and the Bible side by side, hoping to uncover a clear answer. The more he read, the more conflicted he became. Certain verses in the Bible moved him deeply, especially those about unconditional love and grace, while others challenged his understanding of God's nature. The Quran, on the other hand, felt familiar and grounding, but also raised questions he could no longer ignore. Why were some parts contradictory? Why did Allah seem distant, demanding obedience through strict rituals without offering the same kind of intimate relationship the Bible spoke of? Austin prayed fervently, but not in the traditional Islamic manner. Instead, he prayed to the God who was truly out there, whoever that might be. "Show me the truth," he pleaded. "I don't care what it costs. I just want to know what's real." This prayer became his lifeline as he navigated the storm of doubt and uncertainty within him. His interactions with Sophia became more frequent, and he found her unwavering faith both comforting and challenging. She answered his questions with patience, strangely appealing. Her words lingered in his mind, stirring something he couldn't yet define. One night, Austin had another vivid dream. He stood in a vast, open field, surrounded by a blinding light. In the distance, he saw a figure with outstretched arms, radiating love and peace. Though the figure's face was indistinct, Austin instinctively knew it was Jesus. The figure spoke, saying, "Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened." Austin woke with tears streaming down his face. The dream left him shaken but also gave him a sense of urgency. He couldn't ignore these signs any longer. Despite his growing conviction, Austin still hesitated to fully explore Christianity. The fear of what his family and community might say weighed heavily on him. He knew that even expressing doubt about Islam could result in severe backlash. His parents had always been his greatest supporters, and the thought of disappointing them was unbearable. Yet, he couldn't deny the pull in his heart toward something greater, something he couldn't yet fully grasp. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a normal Tuesday. Austin attended his classes and then headed to his part-time job at a local bookstore. While restocking shelves in the philosophy section, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. At first, he thought it was just indigestion, but the pain intensified, spreading to his left arm. His vision blurred, and the room began to spin. He tried to call out for help, but no sound came. The last thing he remembered was collapsing to the floor and seeing his coworker Mia's panicked face as she called for an ambulance. Everything went black. When Austin opened his eyes, he wasn't in his body anymore. He felt weightless, floating in a vast expanse of darkness. The pain and fear were gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. In the distance, he saw a pinprick of light. It grew larger and brighter, radiating a warmth that drew him in like a magnet. As he moved closer, he realized the light wasn't just white, it shimmered with colors he had never seen before. Colors beyond human comprehension. Austin felt a presence in the light, powerful, yet gentle, holy, yet approachable. Suddenly, he heard music, more beautiful than anything he had ever experienced. The melodies seemed to resonate with his very soul, filling him with an indescribable joy. Then, a voice spoke. It wasn't loud or harsh, but it carried a weight of authority and love. The voice said, "Welcome, Austin. Do not be afraid." He looked toward the center of the light and saw a figure standing there. The figure was radiant, too bright to fully see, yet somehow unmistakably real. Deep in his soul, Austin knew who it was. It was Jesus. The realization hit him like a wave. This wasn't the Jesus he had argued about or the figure he had read about in secret. This was someone alive, someone real, and someone who knew him intimately. Jesus stepped closer, and Austin felt an overwhelming love radiating from him. It wasn't just love, it was understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness all at once. Austin instinctively fell to his knees, feeling unworthy to stand in such a presence. Yet, Jesus reached out his hand, lifting him up. "You have been seeking the truth," Jesus said. "Now, let me show you." In an instant, Austin's life flashed before him. He saw himself as a child, learning to pray in the mosque. He saw the moments of doubt he had pushed away and the countless times he had questioned his faith in silence. He saw his conversations with Sophia, the nights spent reading the Bible, and the dream of the two doors. It was as if his entire journey had been leading to this moment. Jesus spoke again, his voice filled with compassion. "I have always been with you, Austin. Even when you didn't know me, I knew you and loved you." Tears streamed down Austin's face as he realized the depth of this truth. All his doubts, fears, and struggles suddenly made sense. They had been part of a greater plan, guiding him toward this encounter. Then, Jesus showed Austin scenes from his own life. He saw Jesus healing the sick, teaching crowds, and performing miracles. He witnessed the crucifixion and felt the weight of the world's sins that Jesus bore on the cross. "This is why I came," Jesus said, "to bridge the gap between God and humanity, to take the punishment for sin so you could be forgiven and have a relationship with God." Austin was overwhelmed by what he saw and heard. For the first time, he truly understood why Jesus' sacrifice was necessary. It wasn't just about laws or rituals, it was about love, grace, and redemption. Before Austin could say anything, Jesus showed him a glimpse of heaven. It was more beautiful than he could have ever imagined. The colors, the music, and the sense of perfect peace were beyond anything earthly. He saw people from every nation worshiping God together in unity and love. There was no division, no hatred, only joy and harmony. But then, the vision began to fade. Jesus looked at Austin and said, "Your time here is not yet over. There is still work for you to do. Share what you have seen and heard. Be my witness." With those words, everything went dark, and Austin felt himself being pulled back toward his body. When he opened his eyes, he was in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and machines. Though weak, he felt a new strength and purpose rising within him. His life had changed forever. As Austin lay in the hospital bed, the vivid memories of his encounter with Jesus consumed his thoughts. Every detail was seared into his mind: the light, the love, the vision of heaven, and Jesus' words. It felt more real than anything he had ever experienced. He knew it wasn't a dream or a hallucination. It was the truth, and it had changed him profoundly. Over the next few days, as Austin regained his strength, he struggled with how to process everything he had seen and learned. The revelation that Jesus was not just a prophet, but the Son of God and the Savior of humanity conflicted with everything he had been taught growing up. Yet, in his heart, he knew it was true. He felt a peace and certainty he had never experienced before. He no longer doubted that he had encountered the real God, the one he had been seeking all along. When Austin was finally able to speak, the first person he wanted to see was Sophia. He asked his parents to allow her to visit, framing her as just a concerned classmate. They reluctantly agreed. When Sophia arrived, her face lit up with joy upon seeing him awake. Once they were alone, Austin told her everything: his collapse, his near-death experience, and his encounter with Jesus. Sophia listened intently, tears welling in her eyes as Austin recounted every detail. When he finished, she whispered, "I've been praying for you, Austin, every single day. I prayed that you would come to know the truth, but I never imagined it would happen like this. God truly works in mysterious ways." Encouraged by Sophia's support, Austin began to explore his newfound faith more deeply. She brought him a Bible and introduced him to resources that explained Christian teachings in greater detail. Together, they discussed what he had seen and how it aligned with the Bible's message. The more Austin learned, the more his experience with Jesus made sense. He began to understand concepts he had once dismissed or misunderstood, like the Trinity, grace, and the necessity of Jesus' sacrifice. Jesus' words during the encounter echoed in his mind: "I have always been with you, even when you didn't know me." Austin reflected on his life and realized how true those words were. He saw how God had guided him, even in his doubts and struggles. His conversations with Sophia, his dreams, and even his pain had been stepping stones leading him to this moment. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and patience God had shown him. However, as his faith grew stronger, Austin also knew that challenges awaited him. His family and community held deeply rooted beliefs, and the idea of leaving Islam would be seen as betrayal. He thought about his parents, who had sacrificed so much for him, and how they would react. But Austin couldn't deny what he now knew to be true. His heart burned with a desire to share his experience, even though he feared the consequences. When Austin was discharged from the hospital, he decided it was time to tell his family the truth. One evening, he gathered them in the living room, the same room where he had learned to recite the Quran as a child. His parents, siblings, and even a close family friend were present. They sat in silence as he began to speak. "I need to share something with you," Austin said, his voice trembling. "While I was in the hospital, I had an experience that changed my life. I encountered Jesus Christ." The room went still. His father's face hardened, and his mother's eyes filled with tears. Before anyone could respond, Austin continued, recounting his near-death experience and what Jesus had revealed to him. He explained how it had opened his heart and shown him a truth he could no longer deny. When he finished, his father erupted in anger. "How can you say such things?" he demanded. "After everything we've taught you, how can you abandon your faith like this?" Austin tried to explain, his heart breaking at their reaction. "I haven't abandoned faith," he said. "I've found the truth. I've found God's love in a way I never thought possible." His mother sobbed, clutching her prayer beads. "This is just confusion from your illness," she said. "You'll see the truth again once you recover." His siblings looked at him with a mix of shock and betrayal. His younger brother, who had always admired him, turned away in disgust. His sister ran from the room in tears. The family friend shook his head, muttering, "You've lost your way." The days that followed were some of the most painful of Austin's life. His parents tried everything to bring him back to Islam. They pleaded, argued, and even brought their imam to speak with him. The imam warned him of the consequences of turning away from the faith, both spiritually and socially. But Austin stood firm, though it hurt deeply to see his family's pain and disappointment. Finally, his father gave him an ultimatum. "If you persist in this madness, you are no longer welcome in this house," he said. "You will no longer be my son." Austin felt as if his heart had shattered. He loved his family dearly, but he couldn't deny the truth he now knew. With tears streaming down his face, he packed his belongings and left the only home he had ever known. Sophia and her family welcomed Austin with open arms, offering him a place to stay and unwavering support. Their kindness was a balm to his wounded soul, a tangible reflection of the love he had experienced during his encounter with Jesus. Though the pain of losing his family weighed heavily on him, Austin felt a newfound sense of purpose. He knew his journey was just beginning. Jesus' words echoed in his mind, "Be my witness." Austin resolved to share his story, no matter how difficult the path might be. Leaving his family's home was the most painful decision Austin had ever made. As he stepped out the door, carrying a small bag of belongings, he felt an overwhelming mix of grief and uncertainty. His father's cold dismissal, his mother's tearful pleas, and the shocked faces of his siblings played over and over in his mind. Yet beneath the sorrow, Austin felt a quiet strength, a certainty that he had made the right choice. His encounter with Jesus had given him a truth he could not ignore, no matter the cost. Sophia's family welcomed him with open arms. They treated him as one of their own, offering him a place to stay and a sense of belonging during a time when he felt uprooted and alone. Their kindness was unlike anything he had experienced before, unconditional, warm, and genuine. It reminded him of the love he had felt in Jesus' presence, and he began to understand what it meant to live out one's faith through actions. In the weeks that followed, Austin threw himself into learning more about Christianity. He attended church services for the first time, though he often felt nervous and out of place. Sitting in the pews, listening to the pastor preach about God's love and grace, Austin felt his heart stir with a deep sense of peace. The worship songs, the prayers, and the fellowship with other believers all resonated with him in ways he hadn't expected. Sophia and her family encouraged him every step of the way, answering his questions and helping him navigate his new faith. Sophia introduced him to a small group Bible study, where he met others who had also faced challenges in their spiritual journeys. Among them was a former Muslim named Samir, who had converted to Christianity years ago. Hearing Samir's story gave Austin hope and reassurance. He wasn't alone in his struggles, and there were others who understood the pain of losing their families for the sake of faith. Yet, not everything came easily. Austin faced rejection and hostility from people he had once considered friends. News of his conversion spread quickly within his community, and he began receiving messages filled with anger and condemnation. Some accused him of betraying his heritage, while others threatened him outright. The weight of their words was heavy, but Austin clung to the peace he had found in Jesus. He reminded himself of the vision he had been given and the words Jesus had spoken, "Be my witness." Despite the backlash, Austin felt called to share his story. He began writing about his journey, documenting the doubts, questions, and revelations that had led him to this point. Sophia suggested he start a YouTube channel to reach others who might be struggling with similar questions. At first, Austin hesitated. The idea of putting himself out there, knowing the potential consequences, was daunting. Hundreds of comments. Many people reached out to him, some to express gratitude for his honesty and courage, others to challenge or condemn him. Among the messages were heartfelt notes from Muslims who admitted they, too, were wrestling with doubts and seeking the truth. These messages filled Austin with a renewed sense of purpose. If sharing his story could help even one person find peace and clarity, the pain and rejection he had faced would be worth it. Still, the journey was not without its challenges. The absence of his family weighed heavily on him, especially during moments of quiet reflection. He missed the sound of his mother's voice, the laughter of his siblings, and the familiar warmth of home. Holidays were particularly hard, as they reminded him of the close-knit family traditions he had left behind. Yet, in these moments of longing, Austin turned to prayer. He poured out his heart to God, finding comfort in the knowledge that he was never truly alone. One evening, while reading the Bible, Austin came across a passage that struck a deep chord in him. "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Matthew 16 verse 24. The words felt as though they were written just for him. He realized that following Jesus often meant walking a difficult path, but it was a path filled with purpose and hope. As Austin continued to grow in his faith, he began to see the fruits of his decision. His YouTube channel became a platform for dialogue and connection, drawing people from various backgrounds who were eager to learn more about his journey. He collaborated with other former Muslims and Christians who had faced similar challenges, creating a community of support and understanding. Through it all, Austin never lost sight of his family. He prayed for them daily, asking God to soften their hearts and open their eyes to the truth. Though he knew reconciliation might not happen quickly, he had embraced a new faith, one that brought him peace, purpose, and a deep sense of belonging. But the road was far from easy, and each day presented new challenges and opportunities. Austin's YouTube channel became a lifeline, not just for him but for countless others. Through his videos, he shared his testimony, the lessons he had learned, and the truth to start asking questions I've been too afraid to voice. I feel like I'm not alone anymore. Thank you for sharing your journey. Messages like these fueled Austin's mission, despite the opposition he faced from some members of his former community. He knew that his testimony was reaching hearts and sparking change. He began hosting live Q&A sessions and collaborating with other former Muslims who had also come to faith in Jesus. Together, they created a safe space for people to ask questions, share doubts, and explore the truth without fear of judgment. In the midst of this new mission, Austin continued to grow in his personal faith. He joined a discipleship group at his church, where he built deep, meaningful relationships with fellow believers. They supported him in prayer, encouraged him during difficult times, and celebrated his victories. For the first time, Austin felt what it meant to be part of a spiritual family, a community bound not by blood but by shared faith and love. However, The pain of estrangement from his biological family never left him. He missed them every day and often found himself praying for reconciliation. On special occasions, like birthdays or holidays, the ache in his heart grew sharper. But Austin held on to hope, trusting that God was at work in ways he couldn't yet see. He continued to reach out to his parents, sending them messages and updates about his life. Though they rarely responded, he refused to give up. One day, Austin received an unexpected call from his younger sister, Fatima. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Austin," she said, "I've been thinking about you a lot. I don't understand everything you've done, but I miss you." Tears streamed down Austin's face as he listened to her. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. He thanked her for reaching out and assured her of his love. Their conversation rekindled a flicker of hope in Austin's heart. While he didn't know if his family would ever fully accept his faith, he prayed that this small connection would pave the way for healing. He trusted that God's timing was perfect and that love and patience could mend even the deepest wounds. As Austin reflected on his journey, he saw how every challenge, loss, and triumph had shaped him. He had gone from being a confused and conflicted young man to a bold witness for Christ. His doubts had led him to seek the truth, and his encounter with Jesus had transformed his life. The cost of following this path had been high, but the rewards, peace, purpose, and an unshakable relationship with God were immeasurable. Austin's mission extended beyond his YouTube channel. He began speaking at churches, sharing his story with congregations eager to learn about reaching people from different faith backgrounds. His insights helped others understand the struggles and questions faced by those exploring Christianity for the first time. He also collaborated with Christian organizations to develop resources for new believers, particularly those coming from Muslim backgrounds. These projects gave him a sense of fulfillment, knowing that he was helping others navigate the same challenges he had faced. As his platform grew, so did the opposition. Threats and accusations continued to pour in, but Austin no longer feared them. He drew strength from the words of Jesus, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world," John 16 verse 33. These words reminded him that his mission wasn't about personal glory, but about pointing others to the transformative power of God's love. 2 years after his encounter with Jesus, Austin looked back on how far he had come. The pain of losing his family was still there, but it was tempered by the joy of seeing lives changed through his testimony. He had discovered a purpose greater than himself and found a family in the body of Christ that supported and loved him unconditionally. One evening, as he sat in prayer, Austin felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. He remembered the final words Jesus had spoken to him during his near-death experience, "Be my witness." Those words had become the foundation of his life, guiding every step of his journey. Austin knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them. He trusted that Jesus, who had carried him through so much already, would continue to walk with him every step of the way. With a renewed sense of hope and purpose, Austin opened his laptop to film another video. As the camera began recording, he smiled and said, "If you're watching this, I want you to know that you're not alone. Keep seeking the truth, God. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith."